So they're watching that go live button, wait for it to go. Welcome to Distilling 101, everybody. Looks like Clint's made it in the house tonight. Did you get my Facebook message, or are they still slack-a-lacking on you? All right, let's see. Let me. Shit. All right. What's going on, Steve? What's up, Cave Daddy? What's up, Thumping Keg? I like the sound of that thumping keg. Realize. There it goes, notification. That's YouTube. Most people comment from YouTube. Guess I better get these links out, hadn't I? Y'all know the drill. I got to get these links out. Clint juggles and tells jokes. I don't like the quiet time of this, so I'll have to sit and chatter. I forgot to split the screen like I did last time, so let me do that. I like being able. I'm afraid I'm gonna mess something up, and we're gonna give it a try. But yeah, I can see the comments while I make these shares. All right, let's see. Okay. So what's everybody got going on this week? Hope everybody had a good weekend. Hope I can share all these links at once. Wes trying to call during my podcast. He should know I got a podcast going on. All right, where was I? Let's see. There, okay. I'll have to send him a message. All right, let's see how many we're going to be able to do before they put the brakes on. Well, that ain't working. Let me try that again. Nope, that ain't working. Let me try this again. That's not working right. Okay, hopefully that'll work. Let's try all that again. Let's try it in a different group. Wow, don't tell me Facebook's changed stuff on me. Oh my God. Hey, let me see what it's doing in Rock Good. So it's nope, that's not cutting it. Not able to share the live. Let's see here. We are still live. Stream's going. Okay, there's the link. All right. Now let's see. I don't know what has happened. That is the live now. Maybe they've changed something. I don't know. That's crazy. That's I'm not sure what's going on here, folks. Not good, though. I'm not happy, not happy. It's just posting as a link. It's not posting the actual video. I don't know what the heck is going on here. Never done this before. And you're not actually able to click the link once I post it. That's crazy. I don't know what's going on. Not quite sure why that is happening. Let me see. Let me try to send you something, Clint. That is. Well, this is crazy. All right, maybe this will work. Okay, let's see. No, let's see what. Well, it's the way it posts usually. Maybe Facebook has changed some shit. I don't know. This is different. Usually when I post it, it actually shows the live on the page. This is posting a link that I'm not even able to share. I don't understand what's going on with all this. Maybe I'm being punished. Let me check my... Made a page. No, see nothing there. Check my inbox, see if they messaged me anything. No, nothing there. That's crazy. Sorry about this, y'all. I've never had, excuse me, I've never had this issue before. This is something different. And I don't like the way it's looking when I share it. Very odd. Very odd indeed. Because it's not showing up actually on the page like it normally does. It's showing up as an unclickable link. I'm going to post. Clint, can you go to the militia page and check and see what I post right now and see what it says? I'm going to try to repost it again. Yeah, it's just posting it. Let's see what happens here. Link. Yeah, go to militia page and click that link I just posted and see if that's going to be clickable or. That's crazy. It's usually posts a live video when I post this. I'm not quite sure what's different. But it's just posting a link. Let me go ahead and handle some of these comments. Picking up either 30 or 50, huh? That's good. You can get them pretty cheap on the marketplace. I've seen them, 15, 20 bucks. You get a bunch of them. They go even cheaper. That's good to hear, man. Good to hear. How's it tasting? You just starting? What's going on, Henry? Good to see you, brother. What's going on, JJ? Yeah. There's in the 6th district. There's a case going on right now, and the 6th district includes Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, and Michigan. So hopefully, if they get that passed, hopefully, others will be able to get it as well. It'll be pretty interesting. Hopefully they'll rule in our favor. That'd be pretty awesome, wouldn't it? Clint, did you make it to the militia page? And can you try Facebook, go to the militia, and see if my link I just posted in there is clickable and working? Because it's not posting the video like it normally does. It's just putting up a link, and when I move my mouse over it, it doesn't even look like a clickable link. And I'm doing it exactly like I've done it for years. So that's worrying me that Facebook's trying something different. Let me refresh this militia page and see what it shows. Yeah, it's still showing just a link. It's not showing the actual live like it usually does. Hopefully they haven't changed that. Maybe it's just something. Hopefully it's nothing I've done. I mean, I've done everything I normally do, so I can't imagine it being any different. I'm streaming it from the Distilling 101 page, which is all up to date and good. I don't know. It's crazy. I don't really want to post all this kind of link up there. I mean, it looks crazy, but I guess if I have to, I'll just post it and see what happens, I guess. Probably be not so many people being able to follow it. Maybe it is something. Maybe there is something different. Alright, let's try this. This is going to be experiment. Sorry guys, but if this works the way I think it might work, it might just be better than before. So let's see here. Let me try that on the militia page. Well, this is crazy. Maybe I can set it up from DIY Shine and Steel Building page. Select video source. So this is like a go live, Facebook Live. That's different. I don't like that. Yeah, this is... I think this is something Facebook's just done. I hope the hell not, man. But tonight ain't the night for me to sit and experiment with it, so that's something I'm going to be doing later this week. So hopefully... Thumping Cake, I just saw your bypass set up on the jar rig. Looks awesome, man. That's nice. Pretty damn clean. I like it. Y'all seen that? That's pretty slick, bro. I like it. Tri-clamp jars. That's nice. Swap them out. Pretty good looking, brother. Looks good. Looks good. And you can add more if you want to increase the length of that top pipe. That's pretty nice. I like it. I like it. Damn, man, I don't know. This is crazy that they've changed this on me like this. Let's see here. Yeah, they've changed stuff. Facebook's made some changes. Let me see something else here. I can do it on my DIY Shine page. See how it's mine. Well, let's see if this works. See if it'll allow me to share it to all these pages like this. We will just have to see. No. It's only allowing me to share it to 9. Yeah, I think they've changed shit. Wow. Wow. Yeah, this is something I'm just going to have to experiment with. So I'm going to just go ahead and post these links as a link. Clint, were you able to go to Militia and see if that worked? So, Clint, can you go to the Militia page and click on the link that I put up there? Is that not working at all? Yeah, just go to the Militia page and see what I posted there. It should be a link instead of the video like it normally is. It does work on. Okay, good. Well, I guess I'll just have to. People just have to click the link. Normally, they see a video there. So, oh well. Hopefully it'll work. Hopefully they get it fixed. Hopefully, if I do it this way, I'll be able to share it to all the groups, because the way they had it, I was only going to be able to share it to 9 groups, and that's about half what I normally share to. But we'll see. I like it the other way better because it actually shows the video and doesn't just show a link like this. You know, let's see. Yeah, it's got to be something wrong. I can see another podcast going from an hour ago, and theirs looks normal. I've done something. I don't know. I'll have to get into it and see. But oh well, it's the Tuesday. It's not going to be. I'd rather be on Tuesday than Saturday, but still, I'm not quite sure why it's doing this. This sucks. Don't know why it's doing that. It's just posting under videos. Doesn't actually show. Hum. Well, we'll get her figured out. One way or the other. Yeah, something's just not right here. On the bright side, it's let me post them all instead of just 9, but yeah, I don't like this at all. Crazy. And I'm looking down, and it's the same link like from last week. So it's from the same source. It shows the same thing, but it's just not popping up the live underneath that link. It's just showing the link itself and not the actual live. So I don't know what in the hell is going on with that. But the link itself looks just like the link from last week, except the last number's changed because it's actually a different one. There is a way I can change certain parts of that, but I don't know that it would change it all. But at least I'm able to share it all. it's all the groups, but I'm definitely gonna have to work on that. I don't like the way that's working, but we'll get through it. Crazy. That is crazy. Don't understand what's going on. Oh well. Hope it didn't do with me splitting up these pages and it seeing maybe that. No, I wouldn't call it, would it? Because it was split. Let me see something here. Let me go to a. Let me see here. Go to this page and see. No, that's no different. Wow, wow, wow. Oh well. We'll figure it out. Alright, let me scroll back here and see what's going on. I do want to show. Check this out. Now I know them damn 2-inch ball valves are heavy thumping, but that is some nice clean work right there. You don't mind if I share that pic, do you? Thumping keg. Yeah, it is crazy. I agree. Thumping, you mind if I share that bypass that you built? That's pretty clean. I like that. Yep, I agree, man. We're trying. We're trying to get her done. What's going on, Patty? Good to see you. Yeah, put your buds in, listen, and they'll never know, man. We ain't gonna tell. I like to see that. Yeah, I'm going the different direction. I'm scrolling back to see how far back I was. Appreciate you, Harold. Appreciate you, brother. Yeah, if those screw-ons, you can just loosely fit the lid on, and it'll just kind of burp as it goes. I guess you call it. It'll force the air out as it goes. It won't seal up and explode. It'll just, once it gets to a certain point, it'll just blow off and burp, and it'll hold just CO2 inside the barrel. Don't screw it on too tight though. It just might blow. Yeah, there's also one in Texas. Yeah, there's, and I think it's different. I think America, or what is it? The Amateur Distillers Association has the one in Texas, and the one in the 6th district. I think it's from somebody else. So it's two different cases being tried in two different levels of Supreme Court. This is the Supreme Court of Appeals in the 6th district. So I think there was a ruling, but I think they're trying to appeal the decision. I think the decision was negative, and I think they're trying to appeal it. I just hope they have a good attorney and they can get it changed. It's something we don't talk about enough, but it's, Why not? 'Cause what we're doing is not evading taxes. It's like saying us cooking our own meals at home is avoiding taxes because we're not eating out somewhere paying tax on our food, right? We pay tax on it when we buy the ingredients, and we pay taxes on our food when we buy the ingredients just the same, right? So, um, I think that's basically how it should work. You don't charge somebody, say, oh, well, you shouldn't be eating at home. You should be eating out, paying those tax dollars. And, why? I want to make my own food at home. I don't want to go out and have it made for me. Same thing with a bottle of liquor. I want to cook my liquor at home and put it in a bottle and drink it. And as long as I'm not out trying to commercially sell it, then it should be just like cooking at home. Now, you can't cook your own food at home and then try to go out and sell it without going through the health department and all these steps, right? And they won't allow home kitchens to cook the food. It's got to be a kitchen that they can inspect, a commercial kitchen. So, the same should apply to liquor. If you want to make it home, fine. But if you're going to sell it, you've got to go through the right steps. Why should this be any different, right? I think that's a pretty good argument, pretty good way of looking at it. I've never have before, but, it kind of just came to my mind because that's basically what they're doing. Yeah. I don't know what's going on, JJ. We got some technical issues with Facebook right now. But we'll get it fixed. We'll get it resolved. I guess other people aren't having it. I did see another podcast that was up showing it the same way. So, now the second one I sent you of the podcast, you weren't able to click it. It wasn't doing anything. Yeah, I was just sending him the link from the show to see if he could click on it and if it opened up. I'm not sure the way it's posted on these pages, JJ. It doesn't look like they're able to see the actual video like they normally do. It's kind of crazy. It's different. And then I saw another podcast that started an hour ago, and theirs is fine. So I don't know. All right, let me see how far behind him. I'm getting a little bit behind here, so I'm going to scroll on down. Says the same thing's happening to you? Man, oh man. So it's working for some people. Yeah, I see some thumpings here from Facebook, so his is working. I think I'm not seeing a lot of other people from Facebook. Took you straight into the video? Okay, cool. Well, at least it's working, but it's just not showing the video underneath it, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, the link looked right because it looked just like last week's link, but just the numbers at the end, changes because it's a different actual podcast. But wow. Yeah, I might hit it with my crescent wrench in a cave daddy. Oh, let me get caught up with these links here. Now, I will say, I've seen people. Oh, so you're commenting, but it was not playing the video? Crazy. I have seen in the past where people actually at the page that they're on comment on the video. Now you have to click the video. Well, this is before. Now it's a little different, but before, you scroll on the page and you see the video there and you can hear it while just scrolling up and down each page I share it to. But in order to comment on it and for us to see it and hear, you have to click on the video. You have to click on that post. And I've seen where people, they don't actually click on the post. They just comment it as it is in the group. I know it's kind of hard to explain, but So as you see it in the group, when you comment, only people in that group can see it. I can't see it here. So you have to actually click the podcast, the actual post. Once you click it, it opens up the actual live, and then you're able to comment on it and we can see it. So if you've commented in the past and we haven't answered you, you need to click on the actual link and open up. Maybe this will help because a lot of people I've seen gone back and looked, and there's been some comments on there, and I'm like, well, I don't remember seeing any of these comments, and they did what, and I don't blame you. I would have never guessed it worked that way either, but only people in that group would be able to see your comment. It doesn't actually show up on the live here, so that's interesting. So if you make a comment, just like Thumping Keg just did, said no link on mine, just video, that's why. Well, let's see if that's somebody send me a message there. Might be related to this, I don't know. No. Let's see. No. Well, hopefully we can get this resolved. You comment, but it won't play. Wow. So, Terry, you can't see the video, but you can see the comments? Damn, that's crazy. It did. Anytime they do that, you're right, JJ. It only applies to the plaintiff. So there's been some gun cases that were similar to that. And I think it's kind of wrong. But the only people that would have, like, people from, like the NRA or a separate group, suing because of maybe like a magazine bill, that wouldn't allow you to have a, high capacity magazine. So they would sue, and then they would bring it and they'd, okay, and pass it, and then en banc, and then only the people that brought the suit would be able to have the larger capacity magazines. And I think that should apply to all citizens, not just the plaintiffs. So, but I'm sure after it gets pushed further, up the line, they have to say that, you can't just afford certain rights to specific plaintiffs. It should apply to all citizens because it's a constitutional issue, I would think, but I don't know. Awesome. Well, you found the right place, Tom. Glad you're with us, brother. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's going. What's going on, Kenny? Good to see you, brother. Where are you watching from? So Kenny's able to see it. So, and comments. I don't know what's going on, man. Show's live for you, and you're watching it from the militia page, Thumping. Also, Thumping, can I show your picture of that bypass setup? How's it going, my friend? Hope you're doing well. What made us, well, what happened is basically immigrants, Irish came over, and they had always done it themselves, and they came over, and they just brought their tradition with them. They made it at home, and they moved here and just started making it here, and they, also corn, when they first came over here, I guess they were used to doing malts and stuff, and barleys and other things. And, of course, corn was kind of a new thing, kind of like muscadine grapes were to the wine industry. When they came over here and started making muscadine wine, it was the big thing. And all these Europeans that had always had just traditional grapes, it was the craze. Muscadine wine. Oh my God, it's the best. It's just because it was something new. They started going crazy over it. And there was a big muscadine wine craze back in I guess probably 1700s when they first discovered them and started making wine and shipping it back to Europe, and they started drinking it over there, and it was the craze. It was something different, just because it was different, and harder to get. So it kind of made it big and popular. But basically, just immigrants coming over and doing it themselves, and then eventually, um, once we became a country, they started trying to tax it. Actually, Washington, who was a distiller himself, was the first one to impose a whiskey tax, and a lot of rebellion. There was a big rebellion over that, and that was actually the first tax on Americans, was a whiskey tax, and by distillers. So I don't know. There might have been a little insider. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe you shouldn't have been able to do that because keeping everybody else from making theirs while you own a distillery. That's a little bit of corruption, if you ask me. But yeah, it's funny. What's going on, Irish? Good to see you. Yep. But yeah, I would say it was just them coming over and just bringing the tradition with them, and finding corn and starting to experiment with corn now instead of just doing an all barley or or a single grain malt. So they started doing adding corn and doing corn, and found out corn, man, it's a lot easier to work with, and malt and work, and so they started doing corn. All right, JJ, we ain't getting political here, brother. I didn't read that. I thought we were just talking about the court case, but I don't think it has to do with that. I think it's all tied up in the courts. I think they'll do the right thing, hopefully. So the second link I sent you's not working either, huh? Damn. What's going on, Smashed? I What comments? I didn't see any comments deleted. All I saw was this. Let me scroll back. I'm the one that deletes comments, and I haven't deleted any of your comments, brother. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I think that's the first one I saw. Well, I may scroll back and see what I'm smashed all the time. All right, let me look back here. Because that's the first post I saw from you, brother. Unless it was something that came from YouTube itself. I think they may have an AI that watches over things and looks for certain keywords, maybe. But I'm scrolling back, and I'm looking back all the way for 30 minutes prior to what you just said, and there wasn't nothing. I didn't delete nothing that you posted, and I wouldn't unless it was, if you say something that's beyond what Facebook or YouTube will allow us to talk about, yeah, I'll take it out of there. But as long as it's not hate speech or something, racist or really bad that they'll, kick us over, I'm not going to delete your shit. Yeah, where's Shadow at? We need a shot. Yeah, it was. It was pay for the war debt. Sure was. Clicked on the link. It showed the video, but wasn't playing. So you clicked the video, and then it started playing. Wow. All right, good deal. I was waiting for you to give me the go ahead. I wasn't. I wasn't going to unless you said I could. I respect everybody's. But look at this clean setup right here. Now I know those valves are heavy as shit. I bought those same damn valves. It's those I was talking about, and they're a little tough to actuate. But I think once you get a little silicone grease on there, food grade silicone grease on there, probably help them out a little bit. Mine was dented, so I had to return it anyway. But mine were even heavier than that. Yours, see where it kind of tapers down? It was like solid stainless all the way across there, man. It was heavy as hell. But man, that's nice and clean, brother. Looks good. Did you use that food grade silicone? Yeah, that's definitely what you want. They use it. The reason I had some was because I do scuba diving, and we use it in our equipment. And it has to be food grade because it's, we breathe in and out through it. Yeah, it's crazy, man. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't agree with everything they do either, man. I don't agree with some of the gun things they do, but that's just not, not, I'm not going to talk about it in here, but yeah, I don't agree with everything Pam Bondi's doing as far as guns and stuff, but we'll have that conversation somewhere else. I don't want. Yeah, you can use a three-way where one of them is coming in, where that T is coming in, and just send it one way or the other, and then put the shutoff valve on the right, and that would eliminate the need for the one on the top. But those three ways are pretty expensive, and actually, you're going to have the second one, the second valve anyway, to keep it from feeding back. So it's going to cost more to do a three-way. Yeah, actually, when I came out with this JJ, a buddy of mine came up with one. He said, "Well, here, just use a three-way here," and I'm like, "Well, that's pretty cool." Tyler Richardson, I give him credit for that. He came up with the three-way bypass. But yeah, mine was just like this, except it was all the same. It was done with copper and brass. And back in the 80s, it was a long time ago. But I like seeing everybody using them, man. They sure help, and especially because of jar rigs. See, when I set mine up, it was just to bypass the thumper to keep the heads and fours out of the thumper because it was tainting my tails, right? Tainting my tails, that don't sound right. But it was smearing into my tails, and I didn't like the flavor that was coming off. I'm like, man, it's like I'm running heads again. So I put the bypass on, and yeah, you are here a little bit early. But I'm going to have to figure out what's going on Facebook, and we'll get that fixed. Hopefully it's just a hiccup that something we did. I didn't do anything different, I've got my patterns down, and links are links. So it shouldn't, all right, so let's see. $25 each on those shunts. That's cool. Yeah, that's good. That's pickle barrel, right? Or an olive barrel one. Oh, pepperoni in it. Cool. It's crazy, isn't it, what they use sometimes for that? But yeah, that's perfect, brother. And that's the screw-on lids too, right? So those don't snap on. I think those screw on. $48 gallon. That's perfect, man. Yeah, that'll make a nice little stew. Except, it's orange, and you'd be able to see that, out in the woods. Now, if you're going to take it out in the woods, you might have to spray paint it with some camo paint or something. I don't know, paint. Might have to use a special kind to stick to that high-density polyethylene. Yeah, it looks good, man. Those will work just fine. Yeah, but the bypass when I would, so I ran, tails in my thumper to get more production. So I noticed that I was still getting a headsy taste in them, and but if I ran them alone, they'd be fine. So I'm like, it has to be because it's in the thumper. And then I started thinking, well, I'm actually putting a lot of heads in through that, when I run, when I heat up and get, you know, go through my fours and heads. And I was like, well, maybe I can just bypass that and get past all that and then switch it and then go into the thumper. As soon as I did, problem solved. I wasn't getting that smearing anymore at all. I didn't know it's called smearing. We called it blending and just tainted. But yeah, it worked perfectly, and I was like, well, there it is. Just bypass all that shit. But since then I do something different now. I divert, which this bypass is perfect for jar rigs and for infusers and anything like that. And for thumpers, still fine. But what I do now is I just run a T at the top of the steel. I come straight up and then go into a T and valves on each side of that T. So I can open it up on one side and go, straight into a condenser and strip. Then I can shut that off and open up the other side and then go into, an infuser or whatever else and infuse on that side. But you have to have a second condenser when you do it that way. But both ways work just fine. But yeah, for that and for a bypass, I'd probably just do that too. But for infusers, just to keep it simple, I just go through one or I could just strip. I can just strip the whole run on one side and do a bunch and keep draining and going and strip all day and then pour it back in and close that valve and go through an infuser, a thumper, whatever I want to on the second and third runs. But yeah, I like to, sometimes I'll double and triple distill, depending on how clean I want to get the spirit. Yeah, on the first jar, you get what's called, higher concentrations of 4 shots. You get 4 shots in there with his basically a methanol and kind of a toxic alcohol. We found that really, in small volumes in the small stills we make, once it all gets blended with everything, it's not enough that's going to cause you to go blind or all the hysteria that happened before. If you had a large enough still and you had a large volume coming off, and you did, do a all faints run where you keep running the heads over and over and over again, you can kind of concentrate those, and that's not good. So another reason not to reprocess the heads. But we found that actually there's methanol all the way through the run, but it comes off at a higher percentage early on, and kind of, as you go further, it kind of decreases. But like that's in pot still distillation. Now you can do certain types of distillation, like a fractional distillation that will separate them all within a column, and you can do it that way, and you can just separate them right off the bat. And it's probably a better method, but it's very complicated and it's just not suited for a home distilling or small craft distilling. It's a pretty large apparatus, pretty sophisticated apparatus. So generally you're it's going to cost a lot of money to have it done that way. But taking off those 4 shots and the heads, the high heads, which generally contain a lot of, unwanted alcohols and compounds coming off, it's just not good. So you can take those, pitch them, and a lot of stuff in there gives you headaches, right? But so you can pitch that off, and then, once you get to a certain point in your heads, towards your low heads, you can, start collecting there. And I'll show a little for, let me show a little picture here. So got earlier. Oh, no wonder I'm not seeing it. I was like, what the hell am I looking at? Just a second here, and I'll show a little chart that shows. Here we go. Pretty good little chart. So you see we're over here on the left in the pink where it says faints, that's your heads on this side. And you see where it says long aging, So right when you start getting into your low heads, like I call them, you can start collecting, and contained in these low heads are some esters, and that will esterify with the ethanol and some of the oils that are in here, and create some interesting flavors over time. They won't taste so good right now. You know, they'll probably be really bitter. Acetone. A lot of people say it's acetone. It's, you know, it's got a funky sweetness and kind of, you know, but after a long period of time, it will esterify. Now, if you're making a whiskey, you know, just a white, you know, whiskey, you can see where it says ideal cut. And that would be just for a whiskey that's going to age for a year or so, and you're not going to give it long enough period of time to do that full esterification. You can also see here down at the bottom, let me hide this text. At the bottom, you'll see where it says brandy. So you can see where it, you know, starts collecting, where it starts getting fruity. And these are some of those notes I was talking about that can kind of taste sweet and fruity and floral and esterify over a long period of time. And you see that you definitely don't want any tails in your brandy, because that's when it starts getting earthy, and a lot of people describe as a wet dog or a moldy or a musty smell, wet cardboard. And then of course in rum you can kind of see the range that you want to start collecting. But for long aging, you can go a little deeper. But yeah, in your hearts is there's where the blue. So the pink is what a lot of times they're throwing off, and the amount you're going to throw off is going to depend on what you're running, and whether you plan on aging it and for how long you plan on aging it. So I wanted to kind of point that out. It's kind of hard to describe, but you know, I like the pictures because it really helps describe things a lot better. Yeah, we'll have to check that out. Let's see here. Looks good. Yeah, I like it, man. That's clean. So you got one of those milk can style. I like it. Yeah, that looks really nice, man. You know, people talk about copper pouring. Well, here's some stainless pouring for you. That's what we need to start showing us, some stainless pouring. That looks good. Check it out. Infuser. And using the milk can thumper. And then for those the other side, sight glass, I guess that's where it goes out onto the condenser. You doesn't have it all connected there. But yeah, that's nice, brother. I like it. Looks good. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with those links. Those got me troubled. I had to fix those. It's not. It once you do it all makes a lot more sense, and basically, um, you know, once you get to advanced stages of building, you know, steel building and building some of that stuff, it can, you know, the bypass and stuff, it can get a little bit confusing. But But once you see it in action and how it's actually working, it all makes a lot more sense. It's once you follow the logic process from beginning to end, you see what, okay, I see what's going on now, and once you have it explained, it's because first time I saw a lot of different stuff like this. Even stuff from the 1800s. I love looking at a lot of this old stuff and a lot of the old stills from the 1800s and late 1800s, and early 1900s, and you would be amazed, like Wayne and Amanda were talking about, and Damon on the past show on their Proof is Out There. The Marie Bain, and her coffee still, and some of the stuff that she did, it was seems so far advanced, for the time especially. So, but science was pretty, and especially in distillation, they were applying some of the brightest minds, to distillation, and they don't these days, of course. A lot of the brighter minds are working for the pharmaceutical industries and for Elon, and a lot of technical, a lot of internet, AI, and that kind of thing. So but back then, some of the brightest minds around were still into alchemy and distilling and doing a lot of these things. And man, some of these setups that they had back then, it's just amazing. Some of them were really far out there and probably didn't work well. But just looking at how they did them, and seeing their thought processes and how they did them, it was, yeah, they're nice, yeah. And it's kind of similar. I keep saying I'm going to put mine on here. I don't. It's on my phone. I don't have one on my PC yet, but I'll get a link on there and post it. What's going on, Mash Brothers? Yeah, steel, stainless steel pouring, stainless steel. Got you a new one ordered, huh? Awesome. I need to start hammering on mine. I'm gonna make me a 30 or a 40 copper, and I need to get working on that. I got so much shit to do. I just keep putting stuff off, and it just keeps piling up. So what happens when you get old and you start losing energy, and just thinking about doing shit gets you tired. So what did you order, brother? Yeah, I'm gonna hammer me out a 30 or a 40. Probably do a short 40. I like the squatty or shorter steel, but I don't want to get the base too big to where I won't be able to set it on anything. But yeah. I need some of my bigger ones and get a small one. Gotta quit shaking my legs. Clint's gonna think I'm having a stroke again. But yeah, Irish, anything that looks so confusing, just ask, and we can walk you through it from the very beginning of what the process is with breaking down the corn. Oh, I forgot to put the comments back up there. Sorry about that. But I'm not seeing a lot of Facebook comments, so maybe a lot of the people aren't able to click on the links. But at least now they'll click the link to get into the podcast, and they won't be making comments that don't get heard. So that's the only bright side. I just wish that it at least would show a picture of the podcast, and so they're familiar with it, and they'll know, oh, this is the Moonshine Militia Distilling 101 podcast and Q&A. But hopefully we'll get her fixed by next week or this weekend. Oh, the 10-gallon one. Awesome. Good deal. Yeah, the copper I got comes in 3 foot. It's 3 foot wide, and they come in like 10 or 11. I can't remember. I think it's 3 by 10 is the typical sheets for like in roofing and it's just 20 ounce. Um, I don't think it's Revere, but it's good quality copper. Yeah, an actual 3 by 10 piece. If you use it all for the actual steel itself, I'd say you could. Yeah, the bottom is your biggest thing. Is it's so large, and once you start doing the dimension, um, yeah, it gets pretty large. Yeah, I'm not behind. I guess we don't have as many people commenting from Facebook, so I'm able to keep up. I'm trying to keep up. Hell, last week when Clint was gone, I had to, so I'm learning to try to keep up, not be so long-winded. Of course, I hadn't drank any now. Once I get to drinking, man, I'll start rambling and I'll get behind. Yeah, y'all won't believe what I got. I got a 9,000 watt element. You talk about a quick heat up and short boiling time, man. I'll be running in 20 or 30 minutes. But it's going to take me. I've got to find. I've got an SCR that says it's 10,000 watts, but that's peak, and I think it's got like a 55 to 6,500 continuous. So I need something heavier duty than that. So I may actually have to go with PID on it or something. But yeah, man, it'll be quick. Yeah, they do. Those banjos are awesome, brother. It's just the expense too. The gas is expensive, and I've got a big banjo, 10-inch banjo, gas one banjo burner too, and I think it's 200,000. And those things are the bomb, man. I mean, they heat up quick, and it's great. But that gas, it does use a lot more gas too, than the smaller ones. But it heats up quicker, so it's proportional. But yeah, it gets expensive, and inevitably, you always run out of gas in the middle of the run, have to swap bottles, and oh shit, I forgot to fill the bottle, and run to the store, and it's just so much cheaper and dependable. You don't have to worry about, is that jar full? Did I fill that up? Or oh no, I think I forgot to fill up my bottles, and then you have to go get a fill up or buy some new bottles and trade them in and get an old rusty one for the good clean one that you had. I would highly recommend it. Yeah, it's until I will say, and I don't want to sound mean, but for certain people, this hobby it's not for everybody, and I'm worried that people will try it that no nice way of putting this, but that might not have the mental. Now I'm not talking about you, Irish, don't, but might not have the mental capacity to actually know what's safe and what's not, and have enough common sense to do things. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I'm just worried that people get hurt. I don't want anybody getting hurt, but I would definitely recommend doing it the first bunch of times outside until you're comfortable with it, until you test your steel out and know that there's no leaks and things like that. And again, this isn't directed at you at all, but it did kind of made me think about, I've had some people ask me some questions and go over things, and they just don't get the fundamentals at all, and just the simple things. It's just they don't understand anything when you put it in the simplest of ways, and I just don't. Well, yeah, but yeah, some people just right. They might be kind of special, and it's just not for everybody. So, and sometimes we've had some younger people on here, you can tell by the way they were talking. It's like, bam, band, I can tell a kid. But yeah, it's $13 for a 20 pound. That's good. I heard gas right now is so cheap right now in Texas that they're actually just burning it off. It's actually a negative value, LNG right now. So that's crazy. But yeah, that's cheap. But electric's so much cheaper, man. It's pennies on the dollar, compared to gas. For this purpose, as far as like a gas heat for a home, that's a lot more efficient. But yeah, it's pretty cheap. Of course, the initial setup is pretty expensive. You can go out and spend $100 and have you a nice burner, and plug it right into your bottles and light it and go. But for your electric setups, your elements, and all your controllers and everything, it's going to cost hundreds, right? So, it's quite a bit more initial cost. But as time passes, it's gonna be a benefit. But I would definitely put it outside for sure, or in an old storage building, because I've seen people, a buddy of mine, old Phil, he didn't mind talking about it. Marfugel Phil, he had one, and he was familiar with running it. He just got lax and had it running and decided he's going to go outside and smoke a cigarette. And when he came back in, the ceiling of his garage was on fire. It had done blown and was blowing. It was like a flamethrower, shooting flames out. So he's, breaking out. He's turning it off and, getting his fire extinguisher. So, for people who want to learn about equipment and stuff too, put fire extinguisher on your list of equipment and get one that's capable of putting out an alcohol or a gas type fire. So definitely, after he did that, I started thinking, I don't have a fire extinguisher. I'm getting one. So that's the next thing I did. Within a week, and Amazon dropped me off a fire extinguisher because there is risks, even for people that's done it for quite a bit. Peanut butter and jelly mead. Interesting. Now, that peanut butter emulsion, is that like just the powdered peanut butter, I'm guessing? I've got some of that. I'm going to use it in an infusion. I was going to do it with some of my banana, but somebody scared me away from it. Said it's real bitter and it might ruin that good banana brandy. And I'm like, well, I don't want to mess it up. It's got a good flavor. But it's when I infused the root beer. It's not cheap there. Well, it's still cheaper than gas. I don't know. Maybe there are areas that it's more expensive. Yeah, we have pretty cheap electric here. Yeah. Yeah, it is 13. It's a damn good price for a 20-pound bottle. What's going on, Eva? I'm glad you said that. I've been thinking I need to take a shot. I have to see which jar has the most in it. Right. Let's see. Again, we get close. I have to take this. They must get a little longer bead than I thought. It's about 100 proof. Man, that's good stuff. So Elvin was able to get in here as well. Elvin, you watching on the militia page? Man, that's good. Good stuff. Derek and Joe, y'all make some good grain liquor, man. That's good stuff. Elvin, were you on the militia page watching this, or on the DIY page, or did you log in from another page? Just curious. We had a little bit difficulties tonight. That's the reason I'm asking. Yeah, I understand, brother. But you can run it right from where your oven is. If you got an electric range, that's generally a 50 amp, and you can just unplug the oven and put it in there, or you can put a second, put in like a second plug right next to it, and as long as you don't run both at the same time. But yeah, you can run it off a 50 amp stove plug. I could run this 9,000 watt on that actually, which is what I plan to do. It takes 40 for my 9,000, 40 amps, and it's a 50 amp breaker, so it'll run it. Oh, it is liquid. Cool. Yeah, I was gonna try some of that powder, but they said if you use too much, it'll make it bitter, and I didn't want to experiment with a good tasting brandy. But I plan on it. I'm gonna make some peanut butter. I love peanuts. You see, get a big old bag of them right here, man. I'll sit and eat peanuts. Love me some salted shell and peanuts, man. It's awful good. I'll sit and watch videos, and I got a little mess here on the floor. Got me a little bag. I throw the shells in. Have time to drop some of the shells. It's like Texas Road or Logan's Roadhouse in here. Uh-oh. Yeah, it'll do that, man. It gets acidic like that, and it's easy to do it, man. I hate that. So you have to clean it out. But once you get it done and run it and look at it, it actually, may clean it. But yeah, that certainly can happen, brother. The dryers, I think dryers are like 30 amps, aren't they, Clint? So yeah, 30 amp dryer plug if you're running like a 5,000 watt. I think I think that'll be fine. Yeah, I think you'd be fine. I think it's a 30 amp. So yeah, you can plug it where the dryer plugs in. I couldn't do mine on it. You want to use a banjo burner and propane under a 50-gallon volume? I won't say it's better for the job. It's just different, and depending on where you live, I guess Scott's in a high electric area. Depending on where you live, it might be cheaper to run electric versus the gas. Both of them produce a great product. I would say if you would have asked me before I saw and talked to people that did it with electric, I would have said you run a higher risk of scorching it with electric, but I'm finding that's really just not the case. The biggest issue with running electric is making sure that you keep liquid over it and don't put it in the middle of your steel, put it down low, so it always has some liquid on it because, once it touches air, it'll fry that element. And I always thought it would scorch like hell, but after looking at the science behind it, and once it gets to a certain temperature, the liquid actually doesn't come into contact with that metal. And, there's a little gap. I don't know I can't remember what they call it, but because it's boiling like that, it is like an air gap all around those elements, so it doesn't actually come into contact and it doesn't scorch. Yeah, you're gonna have to get you some, citric acid and clean it up good, let it sit, and yeah, I hate that, brother. But yeah, the both work quite well. I'm hoping this 9,000 though I'm going to use it to boil water with too. because I'm tired of using gas to boil a large container of water and this 9,000 watt, man, it'll get that water hot in no time. But it's just cost. The initial upfront cost a little bit higher, well, considerably higher for electric because I think the element I got was like 45, $50, and then you're going to have to get all the other electrical components. If you have somebody do it, it's going to be anywhere from $300 to $500 or so. If you do it yourself, it's going to be a couple of hundred probably. Buying all the parts and But I wouldn't if you don't know. I wouldn't mess with the electric because that's pretty high. That's high amperage stuff. And getting the right equipment too, the right parts, because some of that stuff they say just burns out like a light bulb. It worked 4 or 5 times and it's gone. So some of the cheaper stuff they say, make sure you get some stuff with the Japanese capacitors on it and all this. So make sure you get a good quality unit. Yeah, that's why they call it one piece at a time, baby. Like old Alan Bishop said, one piece at a time distillery. Just as you can afford to buy it and get it, keep adding on. Just keep building, building, and building. Never stop. Just keep improving and building, and things will get better. I wish I could be, man. I'd love to go down there in Louisiana and go. I know Wayne's going. He's down in those neck of the woods, but I can't drive long distances anymore. It's like 4 or 5 hours is about a maximum for me before I start nodding off and getting sleepy. I'm kind of getting narcoleptic, and I don't know if it has to do with my sleep apnea. I need to get to the doctor, and I'm thinking some of my brain fog might be associated with that too. I might not be getting enough oxygen or something. So I'm gonna have to get to the doctor and do the CPAP thing, and hopefully that'll help clear my head up a little bit and get some of this fog out. But I'm just not able to, they say apnea can bring on this narcolepsy, and I just fall asleep, man. I've done it during podcasts back in the old days. I was drinking a little bit more then too, but I'd just be talking that clean, I'd be out, just drop right off. But we limit it to a few hours now, or else I might still do that. But yeah, I can't drive long distances anymore. If it were close to an airport, I'd fly in, rent a car, and go. But then comes planning and expense and all that. It's tough. It's tough to do. I'd love to be able to go to them all, man. If I was rich, man, I would. I'd just fly into every one of them and get me a big suite or rent a motor home, make Ann drive me everywhere. Or buy a motor home, make her take it. I'll tell you what, though, if I ever hit the lotto or hit it big, you'll know, because there'll be a big motor home sitting in my driveway. And Ann will quit work, and we'll just start going to all the places I've always wanted to go. Poconos. Nice. Yeah, you just plug into the oven plug down there, and that would go to your controller box that you can just set off to the side and run it out of your controller box. Yep. Yeah, it probably cost you, depending on what you're doing, it probably cost you, a couple few hundred. So some dryers are on 50 amp. I wasn't aware. I didn't know. Mine's on a 30. I'm pretty sure. I'll have to look. They got me wondering now. Maybe it didn't. I'm thinking my stove's 50 and my dryer's 30. And I think my water heater's 32. Now you got me thinking maybe it is. Yeah, it's in the Vernon Parish, Leesville, Louisiana, the 27th and 28th for those that want to go. It's Friday and Saturday. Second annual Louisiana Moonshine Festival. Should be good. And we'll have Wayne there. I don't think Damon's going to go. He thought he was going to get a chance to, but he's his work. Sometimes he can, sometimes he can't. They kind of change shit on him, so he never knows. He never knows where he's going to be. Then from one week to the next, he's not going to be able to go, and I can't drive that far. So if somebody's driving and can take me, I might go. Just let me know. I'll help pay for the gas. Yeah, but I think having a nice little storage building out back would be nice Irish. To kind of keep it out. Doing it outside, especially if you're near a road or neighbors. They see that and they can not quite sure what you're doing, and then they start stereotyping where it's going to explode, and they see all these horror stories and stuff of city blocks taken out by an explosion, like what happened back in the 30s, with that outlaw distillery they had back during Prohibition. And man, it was a huge distillery. They had one of these old warehouses, and it caught on fire. When it blew, man, it took out a city block. It ain't nothing, it's when it gets to that size. But yeah. Yeah, that's good. Around here it's the opposite, JJ. It's a lot of the co-ops are generally more expensive. They buy their electric from the main people and then add some to it, and it's generally a rural electric. And it's usually the ones that are a lot more expensive that gouge the hell out of you. But it's pretty cheap here. But I must say, I had one heat bill this year was 490, and that's about the biggest it's been. But it was pretty cold. It was extended cold for a long time. Had a pretty good winter though. I'm glad when we get that good hard freeze like that. It cuts down a lot on the bugs and larvae, and I don't have to worry about as many mosquitoes and other bugs this year. So it does help cut down on the bugs, and it's good for the liquor too. For all the whiskey and bourbon, a lot of people don't think about it, but especially in these huge weather swings like we're having right here in Kentucky, from 85 one day to 35 the next day. Man, that's so good on those rick houses and all that whiskey, man. It's getting such good character from all this type of aging. So, I don't know if they gauge and judge, whiskeys based and bourbons based on weather. This is a new topic for people to talk about, how they do wines based on certain years was a good year for wine, and that would of course be based on the grape itself and the climate during that year. So bourbons would be the same. So yeah, I remember that bourbon was happened during those 4 years that we had some really wild temperature swings and some really cold winters, and those barrels were able to respire more than barrels normally do in mild winters with low drastic changes. So I'm sure there's a lot of discussions that could be had on how the weather impacts these barrels, and have they coincided weather with certain characteristics during I remember in the 88 through the 92 was a really cold season, or had a lot of temperature swings, and that's some of the best bourbon. Be interesting to see if they look at it like that. You have, I'll have a dedicated building for it, and it'll be under LLC and legal. Because I'm not gonna get rich and give that money away if they want to come get me. I'll make it legal. Yeah. So, are you going, Clint? You don't have to vend. You can go. Yeah. I imagine you probably have big JJ's Brewery. That'd be cool. And especially during fermentation. So when you're fermenting, you're off gassing lots and lots of CO2, and your plants will love that. So that'll be a big plus. And if anybody says anything, it's like, oh no, that's my CO2 generator. That's not a corn mash. That's my CO2 generator. I'm doing all natural generation. I'm sure they appreciate that. Yeah, here we got like Kentucky Power and KU, Kentucky Utilities, and they a lot of people will buy their power off them in some of the rural areas and deliver it for an additional fees. And I guess they lease the lines. I don't know how all that works. It's crazy. What's going on, Mark? Good to see you, brother. How you feeling, man? Okay, here we go. Let's do a big shot for Mark. Good to see you, brother. Does that say Henri or Horny? I'm Henri. Oh, that's cool, man. You can represent. That's good to hear, brother. Good to hear, man. Get up with me, man. Send me a message. And I don't care what time it is. When you sent me that message, man, I was wide awake. At 2 or 3 in the morning, I'm usually wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, man. I'm ready to go, but I wasn't sure how you was feeling. You said you're just taking some meds and everything, but we'll talk. Give me a shout sometime. Yeah, the worst time to call me is like between 6 in the morning and 12. Between 6 and noon, I'm usually napping. That's my sleep time. Unless I have something to do the next day, and then I'll get to bed a little earlier. Yeah, it's still troubling me about those damn links. I might experiment a little bit and find out what's going on with that. That has got me puzzled. I'm just wondering. Let me try this. Oh, let's see. Hold on, let me. No, I'm afraid I'm afraid I'll mess up the podcast. I don't want to. I don't want to do anything like that right now. So, but that's odd. Um, let me try and do it this way. Oh, so I'm able to share it this way. Interesting. Let me see how that works. Okay. Let me go to here and refresh. That works. Okay. Interesting. So I'm going to have to share it differently now. I'm glad I tried that. So now, so, yeah, it's 9:30. Yeah, it's a little bit late to do it now, but if that ever happens again, I know exactly how in the heck I'm going to have to fix it. All right, so that's good to know. And actually, it may end up making it even better. Let me go again to that page and see here. Interesting. That's really different, man. So we'll figure it out. I'll tinker with it this week. By this weekend, we'll get it lined out. Yeah, yeah, definitely do sugar wash, 100%. And like JJ was doing last week, we were telling, oh, don't do that. It'll make it distressing your yeast. Don't use that, and that's too high. You don't have to really worry about any congeners or anything going wrong or all that. Just go the cheapest route you can. Use cheap bread yeast, sugar. Don't go too high. You might end up just wasting some sugar, but run it, clean it, and save that. Save that alcohol in a bucket and call it cleaning alcohol. Make sure you have it labeled so you never will know it. But just label that bucket cleaning alcohol, and you can always throw heads in there and use it for cleaning. And anytime you need to run some alcohol through your still, you can proof it down and run it through your still, and you'll always have it there. Okay, so let's see. We got a question here. But yeah, I would do the vinegar first and then rinse it out with some water and then run some alcohol through it and then rinse it with water again. You'll be good to go. Got us a question. Wanted your opinion on feints. I always throw out about a pint from the start of every run. I keep all hearts and tails that I don't and tails that I don't keep. Um, Next similar wash, I add in the feints. Yeah, you can stack heads, and that's kind of when you do brandies, especially because you have a little additional methanol in brandies. Sometimes it's really not good to stack heads like that, and especially you know. Okay, bye bye, troll. I don't know why that's. Somebody go ahead and comment. Let's clean that off the screen here so we don't have to shut that down until we get a few more comments. We get a few idiots like that in here from time to time. And then they'll turn around and report it and try to get us banned. It's just so messed up. But anyway, back to the point. Yeah, you can. You can stack heads and continue stacking them, and you kind of build them up and concentrate them. And then in some areas, I'm not, in India, it happened a few years back that some people just got stupid and greedy and decided, let's just, sell that to the poor people, or let some other people, if they want to drink it, let them have it, and they were trying to sell it, and a bunch of people died from it. It was really highly concentrated methanol, and once you get to a certain part per million, people die. Yeah, they try to, JJ. We don't let them here, man. I'm glad I'm up on it. That's why I like having. That's why I like having this chat up here, because I might get behind, but I can glance down there and see shit like that happen. Not always, but it helps. It certainly helps, and I caught them that time. Caught it pretty quick, but yeah, some people, I don't know. I don't know what to think about them. But anyway, so you can concentrate them that way. I don't keep any heads at all. Once that chart, like I'll keep low heads like we talked about in that chart. And you might not have been on here when I posted that chart, so let me put that back up here for those that might not have been tuned in. So there are certain parts of the heads. Now I'm not talking about four shots, so there's a difference. There's some schools that say, oh no, it's just heads, hearts, and tails. No, there's actually four shots. Four shots of methanol. That's what comes off first, but we do know that there is methanol throughout the whole run. But methanol is something that you really don't want to mess with, and it's the poisonous stuff, the overrated stuff that has everybody scared, and it's not necessarily as bad as what people say. Methanol's horrible, but it has to get into certain percentages, and the only way you can get it in certain percentages like that would be to stack and actually concentrate it. Let me turn this off here. But you can see here where the heads are coming off, and you can see where the dotted line here, long aging, like we talked about. For a long aging process, you can start getting into the low heads. That's what I call low heads. And there's medium heads, and there's high heads, and then there's four shots. So as it comes off, it gets lower and lower and lower. And when you start getting into the low heads, you can actually keep some of these low heads. And actually, it should have another line here to go right where you see fruity intersect that bottom line to where earthy's on the bottom line. That's just pure hearts, without any blending and smearing of the others whatsoever. You don't get any fruity notes, you don't get any earthy notes, and that's basically where your white lightning is probably best. But you can kind of sneak into a little bit of the low heads on your white lightning and a little bit on your low tails, and get a pretty interesting flavors. Like it says, the brandy, you can kind of cheat to the left a little bit, getting some heads but no tails. I guess the fruity tails kind of produce a worse flavor than like a grain tail or a rum tail, where you can get some of that good grunge that you want. So of course rum will have a little bit more tails coming in, so that'll be high tails. So yeah, some of these low heads and high tails are kind of beneficial over a long period of time, because it contains esters. Your low heads have certain esters, and those esters, ethyl acetate, will create a congener over time. They esterify with ethanol and some of the oils, and over a long period of time and long aging, create some interesting flavors. So if it's something that's going to be in a barrel, you can see where the ideal cut is, like a whiskey. If it's going to be a bourbon that's going to be 8 or 9 years and you're looking for some very interesting notes, look at the long aging line. And you can cheat, over on each side, and those will actually, over a long period of time, create some very interesting flavors. And I've had some, but as far as amounts, there a lot of people say 50 milliliters per gallon, and it really depends on your distillate. If it's a brandy, it might have a little bit more, heads. If it's a sugar wash, you're going to have even, hardly any. So, it just depends on, grain will be kind of in the middle. So it really depends on what you're doing and what you're running. But you really need to train your nose. But until you do, you can just make smaller cuts. So you can use large jars. You say, okay, this is about where I should be getting into the hearts, and start using smaller jars. And then when you're for sure into the hearts, you can go back to using big jars. And then we think, well, this is starting to get lower proof. This is, I think it's going to go into tails. Let's go ahead and use some small jars again. And in those small jars, you can kind of taste your differences as it transits from, from heads to hearts and from hearts to tails. And you can pick up the nuances of each a lot more distinguished than you would if it had just a big jar with it all mixed up. So that's really the best way to kind of learn and learn your flavors and taste. Okay. Yeah, you can take a wider cut. So it really depends on what you're doing and how long and what. But yeah, that 50 milliliters per gallon will definitely get you out into the safe zone where you don't have to worry about. Um, yeah, there are several third world countries that have done that and had some, deaths involved by stacking heads and concentrating, methanols and fours and just kept stacking and stacking and stacking and saving and then eventually instead of just dumping it out, they just bottled it, and like I said, it just takes so many milliliters per liter when it becomes toxic and to the point where it can kill you and make you go blind, deaf, and lots of other crazy shit. Yeah, it's probably a bunch of kids, JJ. A lot of people do shit for attention. From what I've seen on here, most of the people that do that are 13, 14, 15-year olds that are stupid and just like getting on here and pissing people off and trolling people. And they're probably listening on another account right now and getting their little jollies of, but the best thing to do is just ignore them, delete it, and not even bring it up again and talk about them and don't give the trolls their, what they want. They want that attention. And if you don't give it to them, they go away. They won't. So I just ignore them, delete it, block them, ban, move along. Fuck them. Yeah, they go deep, more than most people would. Now, see, with a white lightning, with something like this that you're going to drink, straight off the tap, just proof down and drink, you can't go that deep because it tastes horrible. It's just not got a good taste. And well, there's a lot of old moonshine out there, and a lot of the old moonshine, they would just take out the four shots, and then they would mix heads, hearts, and most of the tails until it got to where it was really just earthy bad and just wasn't good, oily. And they just mix them all together. And then jar it up, and that's why everybody's like, oh, all that moonshine tastes the same. Well, of course it did. It's just because it was very headsy, and it had a lot of ethyl acetates and acetaldehydes, and it had a lot of acetone and everything else in there. It had a lot of heads, and it wasn't aged. It was just straight, So when we, this is, I'd say it's about 100, maybe 110. About 100, 110. It's good. Really good. Yeah, they need a main shine festival, don't they? That sounds like a winner. Main shine. I'd say they'd like it up there. They like their alcohol up there in the cold. Yeah, like Clint's talking about, get used to the smell as it comes off, drips, rub it on your fingers, smell it. You can get it in your hands and rub your hands together and do that. It makes it more volatile, and evaporates, and you can get a better smell of it that way. And you can tell by the smell, by the feel, how oily it is or clean on your fingers, when your fingers start catching and rubbing and it's not smooth like it's oily. So you can feel the different stages. You can smell it. The last thing I would do is taste it. So when you taste it, start at your tails and work towards your heads. When you have all these jars and you want to learn where to make the cut, start at your tails and go directly to the high tails, low hearts, right? And start tasting there and work your way back to the hearts. And once you find your hearts, you'll know, and then you can work your way all the way across the hearts and to where you think your heads are going to start. Because once you get that headsy taste on your tongue, almost everything tastes that way again. So if you work back towards it, it's a lot easier. But if you start there and work forward, you'll throw away some hearts because almost everything will taste that way. And you really get that on your tongue, and you need to cleanse your palate before you try anything else. And it's hard to cleanse that shit off your palate real good. So I always start back, and work my way back and make that final cut, at the low heads, high hearts area, and where to make that. And it will depend on whether or not it's going to be aged or not. Traditionally, moonshine was never really made to be aged. They never aged it. You couldn't, you don't want to store it. They wanted to run it and sell it and get it out the door as quickly as possible. They don't want evidence, right? So it was never really designed to be aged, and they would just mix it all together. They'd mix heads, hearts, tails, everything together, and they'd keep those low tails and run them again in the thumper. But for the most part, most mid heads all the way into mid tails was kept and blended and sold, and not good. Got me confused, JJ. Centrifuge. Yeah, I'm scrolling back, bro. Spread. Oh, yeah. Oh, you'll be fine. It won't. You'll be fine. And again, it's a sacrificial run, so it doesn't matter. But you definitely want some alcohol in there. The Devil's Cut. I tell you what, it's you like that heavy oak stuff. Then I've had some come from barrels. I get a barrel and there's a little bit left in the bottom of it. It's been sitting a while. Man, you pour it out and it's dark and heavy oaked. So a lot of people would consider it over oaked too, JJ, and I like that shit too, man. I like it. I love the smoky, the char, and for me, I'd be probably one of the worst taster people. Amanda and them we're talking about. Some people are mastered tasters and blenders. I'd probably be one of the worst, man. 'Cause it all's good to me. And I like that oaked, heavy oak stuff. And people are like, "Oh, that's over oaked," and I'm like, "Let me try it." I'm like, "Pretty damn good to me. I'll keep it." So I'd probably be the world's worst taster and blender. But I like it. I like that. I love what a barrel does to corn liquor and grain liquor. Yeah, so if there's any amateur distillers up there, I know there's got to be some up in Maine, man. They love their alcohol up there. Um, they spend a lot of time inside in the winters too, so give them something to do instead of make babies all the damn time up there. Well, they need to start with um, maybe a poutine festival with a little vodka, a little potato shine competition. Got all those spuds up there, man. A little Idaho shine vodka poutine competition, or bring some of that, history and into it. But yeah, it's surprising. It's kind of gotten away. A lot of people gotten away from the old ways. You know, it's like canning and a lot of that stuff. You know, it's kind of becoming a lost art. And you know, we have Hillbilly Days Festival coming up in Pike County here before long. They've had it for almost of my life since I was a young teen. I think they've had it for about 47 years, 48 years, something like that. I think there was during COVID they didn't have it, but yeah, it's been a going festival for a long time, and it's just another way to get people out and sell, you know, a lot of folk art and a lot of crafts and stuff. It's but sharing the tradition, you know, it's kind of becoming a lost thing. I think it'd be great. And once maybe if they, you know, get it legal and people are able to do it again, I think that's one of the biggest limiting factors though is people just don't, you know, they want to follow the law. They don't, you know, they're not rebels like us. They don't just say hell with it. You know, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. You know, I should be able to do it, and you know, I'm going to practice my constitutional right and do it anyway. You know, and in some places, you know, it's legal. What's going on, Chris? Coming in here late like this. Where you been, cat daddy? No, we got about, well, might have half the regular audience because Facebook, the link on Facebook isn't working great. And if you notice, most everybody's posting from Facebook. So probably will be about half what I normally get. I'll be able to tell in a week or so if my numbers are down and how far down they are. But because of the link, yeah, it's she may not be able to find it. Clients may be clicking that link, not able to get into it. So, but I figured a way around it already, and we'll be ready for that next week. I'll have to dual log, so I'll log onto one PC under my Distilling 101, and then I'll have to stay on my regular Facebook logged in as me to do the StreamYard because it wants to validate me as me here. But on the Distilling 101, it wants to validate a different Facebook user, and I can't do both simultaneously on the same PC. I might be able to. I've never tried it on the same PC, but I've got another one sitting here next to me. I can do it on the other PC next week or Saturday. And there might be a way now that I can just share it. Maybe they're working on that, and maybe they're listening. So I'm sorry if I said anything bad. So Saturday, if I can just share and click and share to all my favorite groups, and just hit one button and be ready to go back to, you know, dealing with the stream, and I'll have that 5 minutes of dead air and Clint telling dad jokes and juggling lemons and pineapples, and you know, maybe we'll be able to not get behind right off the bat. So hopefully that's the case, and if so, yeah, that'd be awesome. We had Everclear out here and in the military, used it to strip floor. Hell yeah, man. You can use those heads for a lot of things too, you know, so save those heads. It's great for cleaning countertops. You know, if you got an old lady, you can get some of her favorite perfume and get a bottle of heads and drop few drops of her perfume in it. So here, I got you some, you know, fingernail polish remover, and she'll try it out. So, oh my God, this is the best ever, you know? So, and it smells just like my perfume. See, yeah, it's special. I made it just for you. You know, see, all that money wasn't wasted on that still. You know, I've got something for you. So maybe she can get a little something out of it. But yeah, I mean, cleaning, you know, grass killer, pour it on your driveway, you know, and those little cracks, it'll kill shit out in a heartbeat, and that high proof. Starting your charcoal, you know, it's good for starting your charcoal for a grill. So there's lots of things you can do with it. Hell, maybe we sat, you know, back in the old days when I just sit and ramble. We didn't do a Q&A. We just sit and talk, and I'd have me and Roger and maybe a few people on, and we just talk. One night we just sat and tried to think of all the different things you can use it for, man. And, you know, thinning out paint, thinning out stripper, you know, using it as a stripper, mixing it with stains. You know, there's just so many things that you can do. Run, you know, vehicles on it. Lawnmowers, chainsaws. I mean, there's just so many things you can do with it if you know, tune them up right. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. But something else interesting about Everclear is depending on the state, there's certain states that don't allow the 190 proof, the 180, whatever. Let me see, what is that Everclear? I think it's 180. 190 primarily in 190 and 151 in some varieties for certain states. So depending on the state, it could be 190 or it could be 151. I think there's other proofs out there though that they make it in different proofs for each state, and they just proof it down. Here in Kentucky you can get the 190, but in Ohio you can't, and in certain other states you cannot buy 190 Everclear. But yeah, we used to drink a little bit of Everclear when we didn't have no shine. Make hunch punch, mix it with fruit punches. Have a big party. No, don't even bother, bro. That blue, you don't want to risk it. It's toxic. It's just considered a lost run and a learning lesson. Save it. You can use it for cleaning, and other things. But yeah, it's toxic. Don't try to save it. It's just not worth your health and trouble. I mean, there might be a chemical process that you could actually remove that, but it wouldn't be worth it, bro. Yeah, she's up there in New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont area. New Hampshire, Vermont area. Maine, yeah. Maine. Yeah, I wouldn't. Wouldn't risk it, brother. But again, just put it in a bucket, call it cleaner. Did I scroll back or something? I must have. No, I just got behind. Yeah. Well, it depends on what proof they are. You generally your tails, once they come off, you'll cut them off at about 80, right? 90 to 80, and then you're collecting them all the way down to 10. Excuse me. So, generally speaking, no. It won't be something, but it does depend on the proof. So as long as it's less than 80 proof or 40%, you should be fine. But a lot of the tails, a lot of them are collected from 80 down to 10, and they'll probably average around 40 or 50 proof, if you collect them down far enough to where your sweet water is. I like keeping the sweet water to proof with because it contains flavor, that's good, especially aged. But yeah, but proof it always. Proof it if you're going to put it in there. But yeah, you'd be surprised how much more alcohol you get. And it's so easily removed from those oils and the tails. It's very easy to separate. It's a lot easier to separate it from that than from the heads. I hate to hear that, man. It's hard losing those fur babies. Yeah, I lost my tomboy this winter. He died. Well, I guess he's died. He hadn't been home in months. He's an old tomcat. He was feral, and took me 7 years to get him tame enough to. He'd come around and eat for 7 years, but he wouldn't ever let anybody get around him. I don't know if he's just mistreated or just lived feral and never got around people. But he was scared to death, and finally, just one day, went out there and sat down like I always did, tried to coax him in, and one day, he just said hell with it, and he just walked right up to me and stood there, and I started petting on him. He let me, and next thing you know, he was laying down and let me rub his belly within days. Man, he was I think he was been with people before and just got mistreated by somebody. And man, he was best cat ever after that. He found home. But yeah, he was old. Hell, he was old when I first started feeding him 7 years ago. And I can't believe he lived that long, man. I seen him walk around the yard with just covered in blood and shit from fighting, I guess, other cats and dogs and stuff and coons and whatever. But he was a battler, man. He was a big old Tom, too. Gray tabby. He was a badass. But he was a beat up. He's like me. He's old beat up, man. But he died this winter. But one of his offspring are coming around, so hopefully we can get her. She was feral, and she won't come up. But as long as he was there, she'd come up and trust me, and I'd pet on her. And she would act like it was him, and she'd rub all over him, and she wouldn't look at me. She knew I was the one petting her, but she just, in her mind, she's like, okay, that's not him. Just it was funny. You could see the process, but the second she'd look at me and lean down and I'd pet on her and he wasn't around, she's gone, man. She won't. It's hard for me to get her to come up, but it won't take 7 years for me to break her. Yeah, man, you'd be nice, wouldn't it? Be able to float over top of those barrels and just collect it all as it evaporates off. Yeah, I did scroll back. Yeah, we do. Yeah, it is hard. It's tough, man. They're like family, you know. Get definitely attached to him. Old Tom, he was a good one. Need to get in touch with Phil Billy. PhilBillyMoonshine.com. Or you can get the vest from me. All right, here's where I do my shameless plug. Hold on. That's the vest. How's that? Check out that logo. That's a little bit different than the regular logo, but this is the club vest. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, that's the club vest right there. That's $100 plus shipping, and hopefully I got your size. If not, I'll have to order your size, or I can sell you the patches alone. They're a lot easier, cheaper to ship. The patch kit's $75, and to include the vest is $25. Those vests I picked up cheap off Amazon. They're normally like $30, $39, and I got those for like $20. So, or 20 plus tax. So if you want to get a vest, $100 is pretty good. 100 plus shipping, pretty good deal on those vests. You're not going to find it any cheaper. And that is embroidery. That's not stamped or plastic or some of the rubber stuff they come out with. It's actually embroidered. What's going on, Justin? Good to see you, brother. They might, anything like that, I would definitely take apart and clean up. But they had some deals on that commercial Vever that does make sure that they do wet and dry grains. So you can also do your wet grains and stuff if you want to use it for more than just the dry grains and stuff. Because I think a lot of the rice and some of your malts, might be able to grind them up wet. But yeah, I'd always clean them off. for sure. Awesome. Man, I bet you're chomping at the bit, brother. That Ohio Blue's some good stuff. That's awesome, man. That's great. Good to hear. So you'll have some little grain eaters before long, man. They'll be able to eat all your leftover mash. That's awesome. Turn your mash into eggs. Hell yeah. And another use for those oyster shells, right? I'll get up with you, brother. Yeah, Clint, I need to get up with you on that because you got a computer to get to. So hopefully we can take care of all that at the same time and meet somewhere and not have to deal with shipping costs. It's shipping. Shipping's expensive. I'm not sure what it is on the vest. On the patch kits, I ship it. It's like $8 on the patch kits. So it's 75 plus shipping is like $83, and it's like 8. So sometimes it averages 7.90 something and 8.90 something. So it averages 8. So I just charge 8. But I do it confirmation and tracking. Because my first one or two that I sent out took a long time to get there, and I was really concerned that it got lost. So from now on, we're going to be able to have insurance and tracking in case it gets lost and I don't have to eat some patches. So we'll have it insured and tracked, and we'll make sure that everybody gets it. But it's a great deal. That's embroidering on that 10-inch patch, and I appreciate on the colors and everything. That's all my artwork and stuff that I did. It's 153 in Florida. So, that Everclear's different proofs. Yeah. How you doing tonight, Mr. Marky Mark? Good to see you, brother. Man, believe it or not, you'd think that this beard's been growing for a decade, right? It was almost like this in about a year and a half or 2 years. It's been like 3 or 4 now, but it hasn't grown a whole lot in the last couple of years. It grew out pretty quickly. But yeah, I had a beard when I was younger. I just went most of my life without one. I had a beard when I was a teenager and stuff, wanting to look old enough to drink, and I'd go into bars. I had a big old beard, and I'd go into bars, and I'd never get carded, But believe it or not, you can see some red coming in a little bit, a little bit of that ginger coming in. But when this thing first grew, it was all white, and then I started getting color patches in. But yeah, I like it. Man, I hate that for you, brother. Up there in the fur baby heaven. Yeah, it's hard losing those pets, man. It is. 130 in Idaho. Yeah, it's different, man. It's crazy. But I never knew that. Growing up, I didn't ever do that until like maybe 5 years ago. And I was in another state, and they're like, 190, what are you talking about? And I'm like, yeah, it's 190 everything. You can't get a 190 here. There's nothing. There's no 190. That's just moonshine. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? And they're like, yeah, you go to the liquor store and there ain't nothing there that high. It's like, wow. I think that's Ohio. I think it's 150 or something in Ohio, and there wasn't nothing above it. Maybe 151. And that was it. And I was like, crazy. What's going on, Tyler? Good to see you, brother. I'm glad you asked that. Actually, I was looking at making a worm brush to clean worms with and marketing it is kind of an idea I had, but it's one of those good ideas that I'll never market or do. So if somebody wants to make one, more power to you. Everybody should make one. But like, your regular bottle brushes, how it has the wire in your brush, and it has a loop at one end. Take the bristles off the other end, make a loop at both ends, and take a string and tie it to one end and blow it through your worm with an air compressor and a little piece of paper or whatever at the other end, foam or whatever you want to tie to it, that'll allow you to blow it all the way through your worm, pull it out the other end, and attach it to the other side of your brush and just pull it through back and forth, and clean your worm out that way. Other than that, I've never seen anything, that you're able to do other than just let it soak, put it in a bucket, fill your bucket full. It's your same bucket or a bucket that you can just sit it all the way down. It'll soak into with citric acid and just rinse it out is another way that a lot of people have to do. Or put a cork in the end of it and fill it with citric acid and then just rinse it out, is another way. But the worm brush is an idea that I had. Nobody's ever done it. I thought about taking a drill and putting a wheel on it and just, for a big setup like at a commercial distillery, and just feed it through with that drill, going, and that way you go fast and just keep going and looping all the way through and have a big long brush, that would do it. Probably be a good business. I could probably establish a pretty good business going to different distilleries offering worm cleaning services for, the ones that have big, huge worms. But that would be a great way to do it. Good question. That ain't off topic, brother, at all. Yeah. Back in the old days, man, um, I saw people back in the old days, they had this electric shave and all these different, uh, it was basically a way to sell alcohol without, with skirting the laws. And they'd have all these different shave face things to put on your face after you shave. And it's basically just a lightly perfumed alcohol for ethanol. And, and a lot of people would buy it and drink that shit back then. And some of them would, they say pouring it through some bread would help take out some of that some of that flavor from the perfumes and the other shit. It was crazy. But yeah, it was back in the old days. They probably still do it. There's probably other products out there that they use now, but yeah, it's good to gargle with, and like I say, if you don't over imbibe, a touch of alcohol, isn't all that bad for you. Especially like a wine, a red wine with an antioxidant. Just a drink of wine a day or a couple drinks of wine a day is more beneficial than it is harmful, unless you have problems. 190 up there. Was it 190 down there too? Hell House. Thank you. Thanks for the answer, Mark. I asked him that like a month or two ago. Oh, that's funny as shit. Yep, Hell House. Appreciate it, brother. I could have just walked in there, but I thought you might be listening or messaging me back. But yeah, that's just all marketing, you know. And I've heard they got a new one out, so I'm not going to dog them. But the first trial run was they needed me or Mark or somebody to come make their liquor for them, and it was no bueno. 180 there. Yeah, it's all different, man. It's different in every state. It's strange. I never knew that. You're down to three. That's all right. That make you some dentures. Get you some dentures in there. Yep. Yeah, I've heard of that too. I've heard of that, taking a watermelon and cutting a hole in it and then pouring liquor in it, letting it sit, and then eat the watermelon out. Man, it's. But we made hunch punch, and we'd take the Everclear and we'd put real fruit in there with some what was that, the Hawaiian punch, and we'd mix Hawaiian punch in there and Kool-Aid and whatever we get. Everybody bring a bottle, and usually it's vodka or Everclear. Nobody wanted to put whiskey in there or anything, but it was vodka or Everclear. Everybody just dumped their bottles in there, and we'd mix it in and throw some grapes and some bananas and oranges and fruits in there, and called it hunch punch. Everybody just sit there and get drunk, party, and all the guys and gals just pair off and hunch. So we called it the hunch punch. We we didn't have a lot of shit to do in our small town, so we made the best of it. Whiskey's a damn good mouthwash. Are you? Well, I'll tell you, man, it's a tough business. Yeah, you gotta go slow, man. Especially that high proof. I worry about. I got brothers, man. They drink that 140, 50 all the time. Wes, I worry about them. It. Sometimes it's not just how much alcohol; it's the proof. And that really how that high proof stuff is. It's a lot more detrimental than lower proof over a longer period. So, it's tough on you. It's hard to tell because you will feel it in your back. Sweet waters when you get down to about between 20 proof and 10 proof, 5 or 10%. It's basically when most of the alcohol has been distilled off, but you're still getting some flavor from your back set and from your original. Now, it's not always necessarily sweet. I think that's a misnomer. But it does have flavor from the original mash that once used to proof. And there will be a little bit of residual alcohol in there. So when you proof with it, it's less likely to cloud. It's distilled and it has good flavor. So basically, that's a sweet water. And some people, if you're using gas and propane, it's probably not efficient and worth your time and trouble to distill down to that point if you're using electric. And unless you're Scott or a place where it's high priced, then it's probably going to be beneficial. It's crazy, I guess, the differences that people pay for electric. But once we get that grid stabilized and get to, I think natural gas is probably one of the best things. Coal is kind of dirty, and solar is just not reliable and too expensive. And wind is, who wants to wait for the wind to blow, to dry your clothes or cook? So I think natural gas is probably the best way to generate electricity. Other than, nuclear, of course, but there's a lot of risks and waste involved in that. Whereas natural gas, pretty clean burning stuff. Doctors, your barber, and your dentist. It's funny. It's about that time. It's 10:30. Oh, yeah, we running late for a Tuesday. That's all right. We'll sit and chat. I do too, Cave Daddy. Later, brother. Good seeing you. Appreciate your answer. Drop in here sometime when you ain't busy. Chat with us. Are you going to, I hope you're still here. Are you going to Louisiana? Oh, hell, that's 10:05. He gone. I got behind again. Well, you've been lied to about everything, man. You know, you can look at it that way, but they bring you so much happiness too. You know, I thought the same thing, bro, and you know, it is hard to lose them, but that they do bring you so much happiness and joy at the same time, and you just have to realize it's just a part of life, you know, and it's just, you know, something that we all have to face, you know, and we don't want to see it, but you know, we give them a good life. We take care of them. You know, they probably have a better life with us than they would have had with anybody else, especially if they was born wild, or you know, somebody just tie them up, put them outside and forget about them, or put them in a kennel all the time and never take care of them, take them out and just, you know, leave them out in the cold and treat them bad. And so give them a good life, and you know, enjoy the time you can with them, and just realize that when it's time for them to go, it's time for them to go. And the same for us, you know, when it's our time, you know, when the Lord calls, it's time to go, you know. So, but, you know, looking at the joy that they bring you, and, you know, the enjoyment and the comfort and, you know, companionship, it's worth it, especially once you get old and, you know, got more time to spend with them. And you know, when you're young, it's you know, a lot of times you're busy and going and going and going. You don't really have the time. But when you get older, especially if you're single, you know, having that companion is pretty nice. Thank you, thank you. Yes, anybody wants a vest, let me know. $100 is plus shipping. That's You won't find a vest like that for that, man, with embroidery work. Yes, they are. I can't believe I'm just there. But yeah, they're for sale. $100 each, plus shipping. And the sizes run a little bit. So, you know, I want you to measure yourself. If you order one, I want you to measure your belly and your chest. Some of us have a bigger belly than chest, and some of us are bigger chest than belly. So, you know, measure both and give me the largest dimension, and we can get you hooked up. You still ain't put yours together? Man, I finally found out. I bought this set of needles on at Walmart. It was cheap, but I was using the big, thick, heavy-duty ones, and it was so hard you couldn't push them through the lip. I was using the hammer to nail it through. But I found out the medium ones are pointed enough to where I could get them through, and I was using this tape, black tape, as my thimble, and it made a good little thimble. I put it right on my thumb, and I just pushed that needle through with that, and I was able to sew them on pretty well. But that's how I did her, man, with my old black tape. That's the same thing you put on cuts as grapes. Yeah, it's a good thimble too. But yeah, it worked. I guess, let me see what number it was. That's probably a 14, number 14 needle. Worked real well for it. And of course, you want to get a black upholstery thread that's heavy duty. This stuff don't break, man. You could cut your finger off if you just pulled it enough. This thread would not break. It'd cut you in half before it'd break. That upholstery thread's pretty tough stuff. Uh-oh, I missed that. Damn, Clint Bell. Uh-oh, I better get caught up. Yeah, get up with me, brother. How long should you let a finished mash sit? I need to wait another week before I can run. As long as it's covered up, it'll be fine. You know, as long as you don't have bugs and all this, you know, depending on the type of mash, it'll be fine. Just keep it covered, and not airtight. Don't make it airtight, because then you create a bomb. But you know, just keep it covered. If you want to use an airlock, you can. But if you don't, you can just cover it lightly with a towel or something like that, just to keep, you know, the mice and the bugs and the fruit flies and everything else out of it. But yeah, you should be fine. It'll be fine. especially for a week, you know. Now, I will say sometimes it will continue to ferment, and sometimes it ferments dry. And once it ferments dry, it will have a little bit different taste to it. I'm not saying better or worse. That's an opinion, but it sometimes can finish dry and create a drier liquor. When you distill it, you can taste sometimes the dryness. Um, but you may like that. It may be a good thing. And if not, sweeten it up, and next time have to run her before she gets too dry. Or you can just add a little bit of sugar and keep her going, until you're ready to get her. Dry. Yeah, it can make it dry. But once it gets so dry, it doesn't get drier. Once it gets to like 0.9995 or something, I think it's about as far as it's going to go. I do have a little picture. I don't know if I posted it last week. Look how long this is taking for my... That's far too long, man. My old PC was much quicker than this one. And this doesn't have anything on the drive yet, and it's slow like this. That's really bothering me. But here's what your hydrometer looks like, and you can see it goes down to point. Let me see if I can zoom this in. I can't hardly see it, but this one goes down to 0.9990, and probably a little less than that. But yeah, it only gets so dry. And once it gets so dry, once the sugar's gone, the sugar's gone. And that's when it's really dry, is when it's consumed all the sugars. And then your yeast will just go dormant, die off, eat each other and die. And, but it'll keep. I've heard people keeping them for months and months. As long as it's covered, you'll be all right. I understand, brother. Hope you get to feeling better. Get up with me tomorrow, though. Just want to know how much corn I should consider waste after the very first grind. That's a good question. It's a kind of a sacrificial grind, I guess you could say. I would say if you could use some heads to get some manufacturing oils off there, or something, alcohol, something that, will dissolve oils pretty well. But that's a good question, something I've never heard anybody else really address or talk about, but something that should be, for sure, JJ. But they're there, so yeah, it's if you look at those grinding wheels, it's definitely sprayed with something to keep it from rusting right before it gets to you. So yeah, I would definitely say it's probably clean them up real good and then grind a little bit, throw some waste in there, something to grind that wouldn't smoke yellowed in. I guess probably about the cheapest thing you can throw in there, but I would say it wouldn't take much though, especially once it got a little warm. But I will say, be careful tightening those things up, because, man, those son of a bitches will tighten up to where it gets metal to metal. And I mean, they'll chew each other up. So be careful and don't tighten them up too much. Yeah, $100 for the jacket and the pat. It's actually a vest, but if you want it on a jacket, they're not sewed up, so you have to sew them yourself. That doesn't include sewing, so yeah. So it doesn't include the sewing, which takes some time and effort. But yeah, you can buy the patch kit if you want to put it on a jacket instead. You can just buy the patch kit and put it on whatever, hoodie, jacket, whatever you want to put it on. But I've got those cheap vests that's pretty slick on. But I will say, be careful how and where you wear the vest. It is a three-piece patch. Some groups may not like it if you were wear that into a biker bar, it might it might not be a good idea. But it's something you can hang up and wear and to the festivals and stuff. And when we hang out, it's pretty cool. But yeah, it's not something I would wear into a biker bar. But I have talked to the Outlaws and other people about it, and they didn't have an issue with it. They looked at it and said it's not an MC vest, no MC patch, no 1% patch, no locational patch. So I will say, don't put any of those on there. Don't put MC on there. Don't put 1%, diamond on there, and don't get another rocker underneath it with your state or city, unless you want to deal with the repercussions. But the Outlaws looked at it, and they, in one area, other Outlaws may not see it the same way. So it's going to be an individual thing. Some bikers may not take kindly to it. They may say something. Just be respectful. Just say, "Mother, if you have a problem with it, I'd be happy to take it off, put it in the car, or whatever." And no offense, we got a bunch of bikers in our group, and we've already run it by some people. They didn't. Outlaws didn't have a problem with it. So, if you do, I'd be happy to take it off. Be respectful. Say, I respect it, and point out no MC, no 1% diamond, no location. So we don't want to step on anybody's toes and make anybody uncomfortable, and be respectful and take it off. But then again, you never know. You might run into somebody that just goes ape shit on you and wants to get violent. Same thing would happen if you wore a MAGA hat in some places, right? So you just never know about people these days. But most of them just looking for respect and seeing that you're not an asshole. So if you act cool like that, just say, "Oh yeah, man, we're moonshine. We make moonshine. We're all about distilling, and we got a pretty good sized group. We got about 2,700 members all over the world, and we got a lot of bikers, that are members, and got some 1%ers that are members, and they basically told us, be respectful and how to wear it properly, and most of the time they'll be like, "Oh, okay, you're cool." But if they come up and say, "What's up? Why are you wearing a 3-piece?" and you come back with, "What the fuck's it to you?" then you're gonna get your shit kicked. They're gonna gang up on you, and beat the shit out of you. So be respectful. Yeah, we got that. Yeah, I think Chris got his second patch sooner than he got the first one I sent. But it's all good, brother. But yeah, if y'all have a special jacket or something you want to put it on, it's you know best you do that. It's iron on, so if it's something that's like cotton based or something that that will do an iron on, you can iron these on as well. I paid a little extra to get that as an option. It helps, like with the leather, to iron it on before you sew it. That way it kind of holds it in place while you sew it. But if you were to just pull it, it'd peel right off, right? It wouldn't take much to peel off. So it doesn't iron on to leather, but it will hold it in place, so it makes it easier. I kind of tacked mine in different spots and all the way around before I did the final. Uh, and it helps the liner on the inside as well not get all wrinkled up and stuff if you don't. So I stretched it out, tacked it, and then just did my sewing after that. And it was slow, man. And I tell you what, after you do that, you'll have a new respect for these old women that sit and sew a damn quilt. Whew. It takes time, man. Yeah, vacuum on one end would work. Yeah, gun barrel rope. Yeah, any twine or anything like that. As long as it's long enough, just keep feeding it, let it blow through, and tie it to the other side of the brush, and just keep pulling it through. I think that'd be a pretty good slick. I dreamed that up years ago and thought, man, I could make some money, cleaning worms at all these distilleries, and that's just another idea that never panned out. I'd come up with all kinds of shit like that growing up. I probably had a dozen patentable items that I could have made big money on. I was just happy with an easy life. Take a lot of work. Yeah, and some people, you could thread a ping pong ball. Some of the big ones, like larger lines and stuff. I've seen them do this for like long pulls for cable, and they'll take a ping pong ball and they'll thread it and thread that line through it and tie a knot at the other end and blow that ping pong ball through or vacuum it through with a wet dry vac, and that's how they do these big long pulls that I've got fish tape, but it'd be hard to have like a 300 feet fish tape. That's a lot of weight, for a metal tape. What do they call that? Fish tape. So it would that'd be pretty heavy. So they just blow it through. I saw a dude do that for big long cable runs when I worked cable in Florida back in the 80s. And that's how they showed. They had a conduit and blew that shit right through, man. Pretty cool. Sugar. Be the same. Just replace honey with sugar and melt it. And use your hydrometer and get about a 1080, 1070. But it's good to have some oyster shells in there to keep the pH from crashing. It's also essential to have some nutrients in there. So get you some bran flakes or some dead yeast. You can boil yeast up and use it. A little bit more expensive that way, but just go ahead and go to the store and buy you the store brand bran flakes, real cheap, $1 a box. And man, that's nutrients for a whole bunch, man. Just get a handful, grind them up real fine and throw them in there, and that'll be plenty good enough nutrient for your yeast. They'll like that. But you can take some cheap bread yeast as well. It gets a little more expensive to do that, but you can boil it up, put a quarter cup in there or whatever, a few tablespoons in there, and boil it and kill it off and use that as well. But it's more expensive. Yeah, there's antioxidants. There's a lot of good benefits, especially in your brandies and wines. Jungle juice. There you go. Hunch punch, jungle juice. Yeah, but I'd say sugar be the cheapest and easiest. Fruit juices, you start dealing with fructose and instead of just plain glucose, and just boil up some cheap beet sugar for sacrificial run. Just get that cheap beet sugar. Or I tell you what, people don't realize it, but doing corn is cheaper. It's not easier, but doing corn is cheaper than buying sugar. You can get the sugar out of corn more efficiently, and well, not more efficiently, easier with sugar, but cost wise, it's cheaper to use corn. That's why, all ethanol for fuel production has always come from corn, because it's so much cheaper to get that sugar to convert to make alcohol with from corn than sugar cane. Pretty interesting. So if you want to buy some high temp amylase and some glucoamylase and go through the trouble of cooking it, gelatinizing it, and then breaking down the starches and converting it to sugars, that's the cheapest way and probably the best flavor. But for a sacrificial run, we have most people just do a sugar. It's simplest, and it doesn't involve the complex cooking and gelatinization that they'll want to do on their next step. And some people just, they're fine with sugar shot, and they're like, man, this is awesome. This is great. They run it high proof, so they take out a lot of the bad flavors. They throw some nutrients in there so they don't get off flavors. They don't put too much in there, and they don't stress the yeast and get bad flavors from that. And if you do sugar just right, it's not that bad. I mean, it's got a bad rep. Sure, it's hot, but so is most liquor, and yeah, it's probably 100 proof sugar shine, even done well, is going to be a tad hotter than a corn liquor at 100 proof done well. But for the simplicity. I mean, I've done it. I've like, man, I just want some fucking liquor. I just want something, and I don't want to put and wait and deal with it. And I want to go to get corn. I don't want to do all this. I just want to make some quick liquor and be drinking this weekend. And I just throw together a sugar shine. And you can throw a little cornmeal in there if you want to flavor it up a little bit, make you a thin mash, and I mean, that's basically what I did for many, many years, and it's fine. I mean, it's not the best. Once you do the grain conversions, you'll be like, okay, so this is better. It's a lot more trouble. It's a little bit more time involved and definitely more effort, a little bit more expense as far as having to buy the amylase and stuff, but it's better. It's definitely better. That's not even an opinion in my book, but some people would say, no, that sugar liquor's better. Always that one. But that's the same people probably drinking that aftershave poured over the bread I was talking about earlier. Yeah, well, there is past the oils. There is a little bit, from 30 to 20, some bad flavors. But once you get to around 10, it's you get past those, and it's good for proofing. Yeah. Yeah, you definitely don't want them to. Yeah, that's terrible, bro. And I'm way behind. Do we live close to? I'm in Kentucky, man. Clint's down south. I don't know if he wants to tell people where he lives, but I'm in Kentucky. Yeah, he's on the border down there. I didn't see him said that. Florida, Alabama. Yeah, they make some prison wine, I guess. Pruno. That's what about the t-shirts or got me scrolling back. Oh, TV show reference. I got you. I got you. So you replace the cotter pin with a nail. Keep it more level. Interesting. Was it loose? I mean, I know if you tighten them up too much, they'll grind each other. Yeah, we don't. We our rules won't allow us to talk about it, brother. Those poor hands, man. They hard to shake. Yeah, they won't let us talk about it on YouTube and Facebook. But you could private message people, and they'll probably be a little more comfortable talking about it. But yeah, it definitely came on a because a lot of the YouTube is it's not private. It goes to a public forum, and anybody can watch, and thousands are watching. So yeah, Yeah, basically the same thing. Just get you, bottle brush and pluck the nylon. But I mean, if they made a big long one, that's what you want because it get a little bit more brushing. Just some little teeny ones. Especially if you have a 5/8 or 1 inch. But yeah, getting that brush and just it's got the loop on one end. Just pick, make a loop on the other end so you could attach it at both ends and pull it all the way through and through and through again, over and over and over again without having to blow your line through. Yep, I came up with that a long time ago, man. I should patent that. There's somebody out there, Chris Palin, probably patenting that shit right now, ain't you? Now, to clean the inside of a keg, that was, I ran a keg still for the 80s and 90s, man, and it a long, long time. And that was my biggest issue with keg steels was not being able to clean it, right? It was tough to clean, and I'd have to take it to the car wash and pay a quarter. I complained then it was a quarter. And then just to spray it out. Didn't use soapy cycle, but just, sprayed it out. And then, of course, when I got home, I could rinse it with a garden hose and rinse out any soap residuals or anything like that. But I couldn't get pressure. I didn't have pressure washer, and I was too poor to buy one. And so I just used that quarter wash, and it did a good job. But now they've got a head that you can attach to a pressure washer that blows out the sides, and it spins around in circles, and it spins high pressure, and you attach it to the end of your wand on your pressure washer, and it blows out the sides, and it's used, I guess, for, anything cylindrical, pipes and stuff. I guess they use it in pushing to clean out pipes and stuff for clogged pipes. You can just push the hose in there, attach it to the end of your hose. I guess you can clean out pretty good, 3.5 inch or 4 inch pipe, whatever, 3 or 4 inch pipe. But that works well for the case now. But you can get 4 6 inch ferrules welded on the top of it, where you can get down in there the arm and scrub it now. Might have to get a 6. I can't get my arm in a 4, but I'm sure some people can. I got a big old ham hock's arm, but get you a 6 inch ferrule and get down in there and you can scrub it out if you need to. And that's pretty nice. And I'm sure they had the ferrules and stuff back then, but there wasn't Amazon. There wasn't anything you could order and buy, and I'd have to go to some specialty place and get it. And really, before the internet, I wasn't. You just didn't have that information right at your fingertips like we do now. It's just it's a totally different world, from my childhood to the way things are now, especially for information. It's like, the only place you could get this kind of level of information would be go to the Library of Congress and, the biggest library and go through all the research and research the books, go to the card catalogs and research. And it'd take as much research to find the topic in the book that covered the topic as it would for you to, read the topic. That's kind of why we have the Q&A here, because it takes so long to watch all the videos to get your questions answered. But now you got something that makes the Library of Congress look like nothing at your fingertips. You got the world at your fingertips now, man. And to me, when I was 20 and 30 years old, that was just crazy to think of that. We thinking about watch, little TVs on your watch and being able to communicate. That was George Jetson kind of stuff, and nowadays you can do that. Nowadays they got hovercraft that can fly you around. It's like, we've come a long way, baby, in my lifetime. We sure have, man. I've seen a lot of changes in the world in my life, and it's crazy. It's crazy to see how much things have changed. I've seen people talk about putting rocks, getting the little round pebbles like the creek pebbles, and filling it full of, halfway full of that and water, and stopping it up and just rolling it down the hill and letting it roll and kind of scrub. Since I've been talking about that for years, I've heard so many people come with so many different ways of scrubbing and cleaning it. But yeah. No, don't waste flavor. Awesome. Got your beer set. That's awesome, man. That's a good starter. That's a great starter for making whiskeys, and you're learning the whole fermentation process. And JJ will tell you, he's our resident beer maker. Once you get good at making beer, minus the hops, you distill that and you can make some pretty damn good whiskey. So you're learning a lot of very valuable information as far as grains and how to deal with grains and grain conversions using malts. Of course, with beer, you're going to be using malts, but we have distillers enzymes that we use to replace malts, so it can be just as easy or easier, a lot cheaper than trying to buy malted grains. Now, flavor-wise, you're going to find that it's a mixed bag. Some people prefer all corn. Some people like the barley flavor and the rye that the different malts and grains can add. But yeah, it's awesome that those little kits get you started and get your feet wet. But once you get good at making beer, man, you'll be a good whiskey maker for sure. Yeah, it is. It is, and the first time you make your beer or wine, it's like, wow, this was so easy. All it took was Welch's and a little yeast and a little time, and look what I've done with just some Welch's grape juice, man. I've made some pretty okay wine. And then the next thing you know, you're in that rabbit hole, man. You're making brandy and beer and everything else, and it's like, this is awesome. It is a fun hobby, and it's a fun thing to do with your friends, with your buddies, and sit around and run a little liquor and pass the jar around and talk. It's just what it's all about. And, that freedom shouldn't be we shouldn't be have that freedom and ability to take, for them to take that away from us. Beer's legal, wine's legal in most states, but taking even freeze distillation, they called jacking distillation, where you take wine and I'll probably wrap up with this. It's getting late, but they'll take a wine and put it out in the freezing weather, and then they'll pull the ice out of it, right? And it'll ice up, and they just pull the ice out. And of course, when you pull the ice out, you're pulling the water out, and you're separating the water from the alcohol, which in turn increases the proof of the wine, and sometimes dramatically. And it's called jacking, and or freeze distillation. And they say that's distilling. It's not. That's not a distilling process at all. But that's cheating, and they're not going to let you cheat. This is silly. So hopefully we can get it pushed through. I'd like to go help argue the case in court, because it's just something that we should all be able to do. And even if they do, require you to take some class, you have to take Bad Santa's class and learn. Also, I did want to point out while we got everybody on here, there is a fake Bad Santa putting out a bunch of stuff on Facebook right now, sending out a lot of friend invites, joining a lot of groups. That is not me. That's an imposter. I don't know who the dude is. He may be a perfectly fine up-and-up guy and doesn't even know about me or what I'm doing. Doubtful, but just want to make everybody aware of it. That is not me. My Facebook page is not Bad Santa. It is my name. I put my name out there. I don't care. And that is not me. So if you see Bad Santa with, a cheesy AI Bad Santa, that's not me. Yeah, it does, Clint. It makes, oh yeah. Now, if you don't want to get drunk drinking that jacked up wine, it will give you such a bad hangover, man, and headaches. Oh, it's bad, bad, bad. But, we live and learn. Googling, you can get, thing about Googling is you get so many different answers. And unfortunately, Reddit and some of these bad sources are some of the worst places that pop up first. And that's where a lot of people go. And, I don't really like Reddit. I use that as an example because I've never seen a group of people with more wrong opinions and thoughts than there. It's just like, I don't know who in the hell is feeding them information, and I'm sure in some topics it's pretty spot on, but not in ours. But that's why I wanted to create this, though. It's hard. There's a lot of great videos out there. Phil Billy puts out good videos. Barley and Hops, old George does, Cyrus does, Bearded, what is it? Bonded and Bearded. What was it? Beard. Well, I can't remember the beard one, but and what's his name? Still It. There's lots of good ones. Lots of good educational videos out there. Great, but you have to watch a bunch of them to get a specific answer. It's great to sit and listen to them, and I've listened to most of them. But yeah, it's Beard and Board maybe. But yeah, it's you have to listen to a lot to get your specific questions answered. And there was really nobody out there that was reliable that was just taking on questions. A lot of people profess to know the answers, and they don't want to sit in front of you and their peers and sit and answer questions like I do, because they don't have the answers, and it's a lot of bullshit. And there are a lot of Google tubers, that I call Google tubers, that don't have the knowledge. They just, anytime they see somebody ask a question in the group, they'll go to Google and look for the answer because they don't know the answer. And they do perform a service. They are trying to help, and I will give them that. They're just trying to help. But I don't think they're doing it to help others. I think they're doing it to try to make themselves look like they know something that they really don't. And that sometimes can be a problem. And bad information can be spread that way because they can't tell the difference between the right answer and the wrong answer when they're Googling. So I always want to just do this to give people a good answer from somebody with some knowledge. I'm not being egotistical. I don't know it all. And Clint doesn't know it all. Scott doesn't, and JJ, none of us know it all, but we're all learning from each other. And what we don't know, we'll find an answer for you. Bearded and Board, yeah, that's something. And Jesse, yeah. Yeah. Yep. And that's why. So if you want a question answered, you can come here and we can answer it. And if we don't know, we can Google it and look at reliable sources instead of just, okay, well, I went to YouTube and Wikipedia sent me to Reddit and I read it on Reddit and Hobo Johnson up and said this is the way it should be done, and it's just totally wrong. There's no science or anything behind it. So, between Clinton and I both, we got probably 80 plus years of experience, That's kind of hard to find. Grok. Yeah. Yeah. Grok's good, but I've seen so much stuff on AI that's not reliable either. It's getting better. But it's only as good as the information that it sources. So as its sources get better and it can refine and learns, it can only get better, and it will, and one day, they'll probably come to my videos for answers, who knows? They may do it already. That's pretty weird to think that, isn't it? But yeah, it's I love AI, don't get me wrong, and don't you ever say anything bad about AI, because one day it could come back to haunt you, man. It may learn and say, I've researched you, and I remember back in 2026, you said this about me. So you're going to have to wait before you get that refund or whatever. You never know. So I always say good things about AI when you're on a PC. Yeah, Grok's pretty good. And it'd be pretty fun. I used to sit and go on Wikipedia, for entertainment. I'd look at all the different topics, and I just, things I knew about in science especially, and I'd get on there and read some of the answers, and it'd just be, oh my God, I can't believe they're putting this out there. And then I'd send them a correction and source it to a good source. And I've had a few corrections on Wiki. Hobo Johnson. You don't know who Hobo Johnson is? Yeah. He's friends with Train Car Willie, I believe. I'm just making this shit up, bro. I'd say there's some truth to that for sure. And finding precedents, see, my dad was an attorney, and he had a huge library the size of my basement of just shelves of court cases. And I mean, he had landmark cases. Most attorneys can't brag and say they've had a landmark case. My dad's had a couple of them. And for those that don't know, it sets a precedent, a constitutional and jurisdictional precedent that all future cases will refer to, like Plessy versus Ferguson and simple things like similar things like that. But um, sure. All right, Irish, good seeing you, brother. We'll see you Saturday, man. But yeah, ask your legal question. Now, I will say that I'm not an attorney, so at a certain point, I can't give too much advice because I don't want to give the wrong advice. But if it's something I think that'll be pretty much common sense and simple, I'll try to answer it. But again, I will put out there that I'm not an attorney, so certain things that you should definitely deal with somebody qualified. And I would say the last place you want to get advice, legal advice, will be from the average Joe on the internet. I've seen so much bullshit on here over the years, man. It's crazy. But of course, ask your question. And from the time, it's going to be a big question. It's taking you time to type it up. Some of my friends sent me a. Well, that's just let all my buddies. They should know that I got a podcast going on. I think they just mess with me, sending me shit. Because like they don't send me shit all week, and then Tuesday at 9 to 10 o'clock they start sending shit. Or Saturdays. I know on Saturdays they send it because they're sitting there drinking and they think something's funny and they just send it. But okay, can a 911 operator with evidence available legally deny access to a 911 call log they mishandled that resulted in death? Damn. That's beyond my pay grade. With Can a 911 operator with evidence available can they legally deny access to a 911 call they mishandled? I would say the Open Records Act would probably apply to that. I would think that because that they are a public servant, that they would be bound to keep that information available for a FOIA request. I'm not sure if it would vary by state and local jurisdiction, but I would say that they would have to keep that information available to be FOIA'd. And if they didn't, and they, normally do, but all of a sudden somehow this one thing got deleted, I would say that would open up a whole new can of worms, and a judge would probably see that as some kind of admission of guilt. And but it's hard to quote, for a judge. But that's something that that's a good question. Yeah, I would definitely consult an attorney with that for sure, especially if it resulted in death. Absolutely, 100%. And I'm sure you can find lots of good attorneys that would. In fact, I could probably put you in touch with some, but depending on your location. But yeah, I would definitely find an attorney to especially if a death resulted in something that could have been prevented had they handled it appropriately and professionally. And just because they have a lack of training is not an excuse, right? Just like I didn't know that law existed is no excuse for breaking that law, So, I would say the same thing would probably apply to this. Just because they didn't understand the problem doesn't mean that they can't be responsible for the problem, especially if it were, life and death situation. Go talk to a real attorney. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of attorneys that'll take something on a contingency basis. There's lots of hungry attorneys out there, and I would say find somebody young that's just getting out of law school that were very astute. And wow, that's crazy, Mikey. I had a buddy of mine that found somebody dead while he's out hunting, uh, and found somebody on the side of the road. Another friend found somebody on the side of the road. Cars parked there. It's kind of off the road and into the ditch a little bit, and he stopped to see if they needed some help, and they was dead. They'd been there a while too, and so people have been passing them by for a day or two, and they've been there dead for a day or two. Man, it's terrible. But yeah, I mean, I wish I wish I had that law degree to help you, brother. But eventually you'll find somebody that's hungry enough to take it, and if not, then I guess it's just a tragedy, that happens all the time, unfortunately, all the time. A lot of incompetent people out there hired. This, I'm not trying to get political or anything, but I know a lot of people were talking about Doge going in and doing a lot of auditing in the government papers. And I'm not saying pro or con either way, but a lot of people were upset because they were afraid that these brilliant kids were going to have access to all their information, which they didn't. But if you've ever had to deal with anything with the IRS, which I have in the past, I've been audited 4 times, never any problem. I've always proved it, and they're like, okay, but they've questioned it, and I've always provided the documentation needed to show them what was going on. And but anyway, I called for advice one time, and the person I was talking to, I mean, I've filed my own taxes for 30-some years. The person I was talking to was a complete imbecile. And this person has access to all our information, and we don't know who this lady, what kind of home she has, what kind of people she deals with, her income levels, and what she might be coerced to do. But I can guarantee you there's a lot more risk with that lady I was talking to that day than some of these brilliant kids that were doing the Doge. And the same thing with attorneys out there. There's some out there that just made it through law school. You have no idea. I guess they just got through with D's and considered passing because they didn't flunk. And they got the lowest score possible on the bar exam and still made it. And, that doesn't make them good. Same things with doctors. Do you want a doctor operating at you that got D's? Or do you want an A student, because on the wall, that plaque looks the same. They graduated from med school, they passed their exam, and it doesn't tell you what grades they got, right? Well, police retaliation, most attorneys have to go against cops all the time. So he's not, he better stick to personal injuries or something like that, something different than he has to go up against cops, because, you know, but that's crazy that people have that fear. Cops should all be on the up and up and honest and not corrupt, as should our government. And again, I'm not talking about either side, and I won't. But yeah, I got to get off here too. It's getting late. Hey, search IQ. I hope you get solutions, man. If it's somebody in your family that passed away and you just don't want to give up, hopefully one day that you'll get the justice that you seek, and let a jury of your peers decide and whether or not there's a reason. But maybe talk to judges. It's maybe they can give you some information. A lot of them will say, well, you probably would never come before their court because they're a certain type of judge, but maybe they can steer you in the right direction. Or the attorneys that don't want to do it, maybe they, say, I realize that you're afraid of the cops and afraid of retaliation. Do you know of an attorney that's hungry enough to take this, that doesn't really care, that's not a chicken shit, And maybe they can put you onto somebody. Right. And I understand exactly where you're coming from, man. And it's a pretty helpless feeling, when nobody listens. And you're crying out, and nobody's hearing you, man, and you got some injustice, and it's cost a life, and nobody seems to care, man. It's pretty sad, but it's another sign of our times that hopefully we can get back to the old ways when people did give a shit. It's like all the crime that happens in these big cities right on the street. People take pictures with their phones. They'll have their phones up taking pictures of it. They won't do a damn thing, man. Sit and watch some woman get beat and mugged and take pictures and hide and watch, and won't jump in there and beat the shit, or just try to get a group of guys together and get the dude off of them and hold them down for the cops. Nobody does that anymore, man. It's crazy, but yeah, it's sad. All right, Tyler, good seeing you, brother. No problem, man. Come on in. We'll be here Saturday. Come in, hang out with us, bring you questions, and not just questions. You can come in and tell us what's going on, what's your successes and failures, and we can all try to improve on it. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. It's getting late. Especially for a Tuesday. Usually we'll run a little bit over on Saturdays. We try to do 8 to 10, but we always run a little bit late. I enjoy talking to everybody, and as long as people are asking questions, I hate to leave, and I'll try to answer everything I can. And I definitely appreciate everybody that tunes in, and we will see you Saturday. And I don't know if we're going to have some live streams. I have to talk to Wayne and see if maybe we can have Wayne jump on here maybe this weekend if he's down there and not busy. I'm not sure what he'll be doing at 10 and how late that festival stays open, but maybe at 8 or something early. I'll have to give him a shout. I hadn't thought about that, but maybe we can give him a link and he can jump on here and do a little promo Friday or Saturday. So that'll be Saturday. So maybe Friday it'd be the best time to promo, because Saturday at 8 would be a little bit late for promotion. All right, brother. Good seeing you, man. Get up with me. And for anybody wanting to vest, join the Moonshine Militia or DIY Shine and stuff. You can find me on Facebook easily. Send me a message and we can meet up, and or we can meet in IMs, and we can exchange informations, and we can get that out to you. I do PayPal. I've got trying to think of what they call it. I don't do a lot of this type of stuff, but it's not Venmo. It's Zelle. That goes directly into my bank. So most banks will do the Zelle. So it'll take it directly out of your account, put it in mine, and no fees and all that involved, and pretty secure bank to bank. So that's one of the best ways to do it. But hell, if you want to mail a check and wait a few weeks till it clears, I'll do that too. I don't give a shit. But until Saturday, the 28th, everybody have a great week. We will be here at Saturday, 8 Eastern. Thanks for tuning in. Shine on. Love y'all, and peace out.